Hello and thank you for joining the midweek edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Ozubakun. As the general election is just 16 days away, how set are you for the polls? 16 days, we're counting down. Today on the show, presidency governors meet over alleged plans to scuttle elections. ASU threatens to sanction uncooperative vice chancellors over university strike. And later on the show, troops kill 21 bandits, capture 17 in Zamfara, Katsina. I'll be hanging out with Wale Adeoye and Asuko James. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for joining us. In our do-or-die brand of politics, politicians can go the extra mile to curry support and win electoral contests. Now, the presidency has alleged that some politicians are involved in stockpiling weapons and mobilizing thugs to unleash violence during the 16th of February and the 2nd of March elections, that is the presidential and governorship election stroke the National Assembly election. During a high-security meeting involving the Acting Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, and the National Security Advisor, Babagana Munguno, and the Nigerian Governors Forum, the presidency warned that anything short of peace before, during, and after the election will be resisted. The police boss also met with deputy commissioners of police in charge of operations to stress the importance of security in the forthcoming elections. Let's hear the security chiefs.
Recent intelligence reports have indicated plans by some individuals and groups to instigate violence during and after the coming elections. Reports reaching me have revealed that some individuals are uncertain of their fate in the elections and are hence plotting to precipitate widespread violence aimed at scuttling the conduct of the polls. Their strategy is to cause crisis that could snowball into endless crisis for the government and the citizenry of this country. There are indications that these unscrupulous elements are already mobilizing merchants of violence, including armed bandits and terrorists, to orchestrate violence during the elections in several states of the Federation. I will refrain from being specific on some of the plots that have been uncovered, though the security agencies will spare no efforts in dealing appropriately with any act that can destabilize the nation and paint us collectively in a bad light among the Committee of States.
We are conscious of our critical roles in this process and are determined more than ever before to perform these roles within the dictates of the law and with due respect to citizens' rights. In cognizance of this, I wish to renew our assurance to the nation and the international community of our unwavering determination to employ strategies and initiate actions that will guarantee a peaceful, secure, and level playing field for all political actors and citizens to freely exercise their voting right. We, however, remain genuinely concerned about the disposition of some ill-advised political actors who appear bent on threatening our democratic values and our national security, all in their desperation to project their narrow political interests over and above national interests.
For our viewers, the TVC News, we are about signing out, and you can still watch us on our terrestrial platform just to join a live transmission. We'll be right back. You'll watch us for our repeat broadcast this evening. Wale Adeoye, what is happening? This kind of alarm, we get to hear them when we have big elections like this, but I will ask you, for some politicians, I know they're like stock in trade. Anytime we have major election like this, they arm people, they have boys, they arm, they stockpile, and you know, and you begin to look at, if you say you want to serve the people, if you have the interest of the people at heart, if your children are abroad, your children are in London, they're in America, they're in choice Ivy League, you know, colleges across Europe, and the best you can do is to look for boys on the streets, thugs, arm them, give them money, mobilize them effectively. Now, this cuts across political parties, because we still notice what happened between factions of the NURCW or at the Sky Power Pavilion just within Lagos State or Progressive Congress. And those are the people, when you go for any political rallies, those are the people that will feature prominently. What is responsible for this trend? Well, what do I need talks for when I know people come out to vote for me?
I think, first of all, the meeting held in Abuja, it was impressive in the sense that all the political parties, irrespective of which political party they belonged, at least came together for a common motive to address the issue of security, which is a threat to the forthcoming elections. But I think from what the National Security Advisor has said and the IG, it shows that they have knowledge, some knowledge about what really wants to happen. So there will be no excuse for us not to make adequate preparation. The Minister of Information also said the same thing some 2 weeks ago. So it means perhaps the government is in possession of credible information about plans to disrupt the election. So what you expect the government to do to make a kind of fundamental departure from the past, because each time there's election, the government comes up to say, look, there are plans to destabilize, talks are mobilizing to disrupt the election. But the difference we want is for the government to identify those that are responsible.
Even within their political
parties, and then nip it in the bud. It's a kind of tradition since 1999 that when election is coming, people armed talks. Because election is no longer about the people. It's about the interest of a few elite who wants to seize power and the sovereignty of the people at all costs and by all means necessary. So it means they are not going to power just for you and me. I
thought that was in the era of when votes don't really count.
Yes.
But right now that we have a kind of electoral process that it's going to be the reflection and the aspiration of the people that will count that day, not the number of thugs, not the number of ballot papers you can cut away.
Yeah, but that's the situation we find ourselves today. You know, that each time there's an election, people armed thugs to disrupt the election, to ensure that they snatch ballot paper. Even with the introduction of card readers, we still find a situation where arms are still going up and down across across the country. So I think the authorities should kind of intervene at the appropriate time to ensure that they arrest those, since they claim they are aware now. At least this thing, the information is not without subjects. So they must go ahead to pick those that are responsible before they commit that havoc.
Okay, let me quickly take this break. When we come back, we'll talk more. Still Journalist Hangout. Stay with us. Welcome back. Still Journalist Hangout, and we are looking at the security situation ahead of the 2019 election. Chief Gani Kaide Balogun is joining us. Maybe when you were not chief, you come very early to the studio. But now that Are of Yoruba land has given you the OC Are. Anyway, why do you think politicians we stockpile arms and hire thugs ahead of elections?
Because elections in Nigeria is usually war. And we don't need to pretend about it. Because you and I know that whoever wins has just joined the club of the affluent, the elite, those who have access to our commonwealth. And since you and I know that nobody has really been dealt with in the last 20 years, to have stolen our money. Even we know some people who are even caught, who bought senatorial forms from prison, which shows you the level of shamelessness that our politicians have dragged us into. So you have to understand the fact that it's a do or die thing. Because those who are out of power wants to get back into power. And those who are in power don't want to leave power.
And people that are outside power want to get into it.
Because I know a popular joke of a friend of mine who said it's in the gatehouse of power. That but this year is going to be inside the main house of power. So there is even grades of access to power. So those are somebody like the gatehouse person will stockpile anything. Will do whatever it takes to make sure there's one of those
gets into the palace.
No, it's true. I think this issue is it cuts across all the political parties. You know, the political party that wants to retain the seat and the one that wants to grab the power from the one that is already retaining the seat or on the seat. You know, and it's worrisome because election shouldn't be. I know in so many other climes that we have read or that we copy from, election is not war. Sometimes it is fun in most countries, you know, for them to change, either to change power or to retain the sitting government, you know. Most electorate want to go out and exercise their civic duty, you know, happily. And that is why in some countries, elections don't come on weekends. It comes on normal days, like can come on a Monday, can come on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And you can easily cast your ballot and go to your work.
Simple.
You know, simple.
They
and that is,
even have mailing.
Yes, some people mail theirs. You know, so to countries like that, they can't. You don't expect them or the politicians to stockpile, you know, arms.
That's because the system. I'm sorry, the system takes care of these people. The social security system works in Nigeria right now. You are either in government or you are poor. Let me use that word. Majority of people who are affluent in our country today are through government patronage. So it's, like I said, do or die. Because those who are out of power for 2 years, see them switching parties. Some are as early as a week after the election. Because they cannot see their lives outside power. So we can pontificate all we want. But the reality of Nigeria's situation is that the level of our poverty proves the fact that only those who have access to power are affluent.
Then when you want to look at it, what will thuggery? Because I've gone through INEC system, and I've gone through the advancements, the development in the system from 2015 down to Ekiti election, down to a Osun election, and they are dating for 2019, and so many things, you know, like they've taken like so many giant strides along the line. Now, when you are looking at it as well, we've gone past that era of you can take this ballot box from this area and you go and turn prints and, you know, at the end of the big ballot boxes, thumbprint, enter it and no. From areas to areas, from polling unit to polling unit, this ballot papers are serialized and there's a way INEC do it now, the color and everything. So what will you be needing talks for?
It's quite surprising because I think what most of the politicians will be, they want to use these talks for is just to disrupt the election or cause fear so that people don't go out to vote.
Yes, maybe the stronghold of your opposition. You want to make sure that INEC is saying if there's violence in a certain place, they will have to cancel the
election and go back again and things like that. Because I've witnessed live. This one is not that.
2015 now. 2015,
where somebody actually went there, they shot into the air and took the ballot paper and they ran away. police of the police were there, they couldn't do anything.
Yes, because police officers in the polling units, they are not armed.
But right now, what politicians will be using these thugs is just to cause that fear, so that people don't go out to vote. Because once they know, maybe in a particular street or the stronghold of a particular political party, they are going there and brandishing machetes and all that, and showing everybody that we have gone. If you come out, this is what we'll do to you and all that. Nobody will want to go out, you know. So it is very, very worrisome that, and thank God that the NSA is saying this. And this is based on intelligence reports, you know, intelligence report that people are actually doing this. Now, where I also want to, you know, exercise a little bit of fear is when they start picking up people. I don't want to see a situation whereby a particular political party will say they are picking up our people, you know. And if you are picking up people, please let there be evidence. We don't want a situation whereby you say you pick up people, because I know sometimes
security will be people will be partisan.
But yeah, and
trying
we don't
to
want
neutralize.
that. We want to make sure that anybody that is caught red-handed is made to face the law. We don't want anybody, because Ayo, what is always happening is that we make this arrest, and after this arrest is being made, nobody is prosecuted. Even if they are prosecuted, what next? You know, what next? Does it make people to stop, you know, this particular act? Because that is the major problem we seem to be. After the 20, do you know how many people are being caught? Nobody.
How many people were apprehended, prosecuted, and jailed?
How many people are in Kirikiri prison or any maximum prison for electoral violence or killings? None.
In fact, the first time we heard the word newly prosecute was basically when Attorney Generals refused to prosecute people who are caught for electoral malpractices.
Wale, now looking at it, how do we have, like this area, K2? Most of the time, for security purposes, anytime I have anything to do, I prefer going through the express and maybe go home and everything. The quantum of unemployed youths, jobless youths around the streets. So people that politicians easily co-opt and conscript into their nefarious acts. Yeah. So that can be tied, if these youths are gainfully employed, if they have something doing, I won't follow any politician. I don't know how much you are going to give me now.
Exactly.
That you are going to say I should carry gun for you. Do you understand? Because I have what I'm doing. So I think it has to do with the high rate of unemployment, Wale.
Yes, it's partly responsible for the problem. Poverty has become a fertile ground for recruiting thugs and hooligans who are, perpetrate mayhem during elections, and of course at a fee. But I also think beyond that, we have said it here also, that weak law enforcement institutions is also an inducement. When you know that when you commit this crime, nobody is going to catch you, that in fact the governors will protect you from persecution. So that is one other major problem, that the laws are very weak. The police also most of the time compromise. But I think we must also say this. When we are talking about threats to the election, it's not just from violent people alone. It's also from politicians who offer money for voters. Because the greatest threat to our democracy is when you take away the sovereignty of the people. People are not voting out of their own free will. When you are giving 10,000 naira to voters, and then you end up having a situation where crooks and vagabonds emerge to be governors or members of the Senate. There's no way such people can resolve the economic contradictions. And also the judiciary. Violence.
Hold on, Wale. Let me quickly take this caller. Latif is calling us from Lagos. Thank you for joining us, Latif.
Okay,
yes.
The man by your left, immediate left, has spoken what I want to say. And that is the expectation of Nigerians, that this is the time of the politicians to be doing their semi-final killings. As far as election has concerned in this country. So we are not new to it. like what he has just said, here, if we are not new to it in Nigeria, the final will be after election. All the tribunal and whatever judges and whatever, that will be the final, and anything they will do to themselves. Can anybody tell us in this country, in Rivers State alone, any election, whatever election or whatever election, in Rivers State, can anybody tell us there will be any killing?
You know, the armed groups are not the only threats. The judiciary may also be a threat. If you remember what happened during the June 12th election, it was just a stroke of the pen by Justice Ikweme that cancelled the June 12th election. So if they don't resolve the crisis going on with the CJN, it is a threat to sustainable development, it's a threat to democracy, post-election judicial contest. Because we have a situation where the CJN has been accused of crime. We need to ensure that we have a credible judiciary to give confidence to the people. If you don't resolve this crisis, whereby you have somebody that is a criminal suspect, you know, presiding over who is going to be the judges in post-election tribunals, then you may not have justice being dispensed to the people. And that on its own can also spur people into violence. So I think the judiciary has a very crucial role to play in terms of having peaceful election and also peaceful post-election processes.
GKB, it seems we have a fertile ground for these people to just latch on and give money and they conscript these guys.
Yes, the devil always find work for idolants. And we keep breeding a new class of people without any employable skills whatsoever. And that to me is a ticking bomb in the long run. Don't forget it was things like this that metamorphosed to Boko Haram. Most of the people in this doing banditry are also former thugs that are no longer employable, who now resort to self-help and go into armed robbery, as it were. I think we are playing with fire if we do not move away from the conventional way of doing politics and provide enough for people so that people can be free to take decisions that will be binding. Poverty is a bastard, and like the Yorubas will say, hunger cannot enter the belly, and another thing, it cannot accommodate another thing. Once hunger is there, or it is filled. And it's okay to say all the things we wanted to say, but unless and until we find a way to keep our youth employed and occupied, because there are two different things, we will not move away from this reality.
I want to talk about proliferation of arms. It's not like anywhere, everything. It's not. It's a common thing now that you have a lot of. Before, it used to be security agencies and a scarce commodity. But right now, if you go to Moshe, if you go to Fadi, if you go to suspects, I'm sure you will go to K2.
So many. Even I think it was yesterday from Sokoto, I saw a makeshift gun. So it means that they've even started improvising local, guns. And
to terrorize people.
Then our borders are very porous. So politicians will always have a way to bring these things in. So it means the new IGP, the NSA, the DSS, they have their job very cut out for them because they need to see how these elections can go on without violence. And that is a very, very tough job to do, particularly this period, that everywhere is tensed, because yes, employment is one of the major issues, because if I'm employed, nobody can come and tell me to pick up hands and begin to go and, scatter the election or go to any polling unit. Because I know that the only thing I need to do, the only thing I need to do is just to go there and vote. Now, where I'm also very, very suspicious and also very concerned is when our lawmakers are always doing these empowerment programs. Is it that they don't bring these youths, because sometimes you see these empowerment programs across board, everywhere. They keep telling you empowerment program and all that. The federal government is doing their empower, and those ones are graduates. Now, the from the lower rug, which is the local government, like you're saying, this K2 area, going to Surulere. If you go to Surulere, it's always one court activities completely in Surulere. You know, so when you go to these areas, they have senators, they have House of Reps members. They're always saying something about empowerment program. Why can't they empower these youths? Because if, for instance, I'm a youth and I don't have a job, and somebody is collecting money from Abuja, and he comes down and he says he wants to empower. Okay, I want to be a barber. Give me what I want. The only thing I need is a clipper, a generator, and maybe one small space, you know, for me to earn a living. And that is what a boy or a guy will need. Then for a lady, hairdresser, you understand? If you want to train me on cake making or baking or whatever, you know, those things, they are supposed to make it everybody. So that, Ayo, this thing we are talking is serious, is a very serious thing. And so sometimes you wonder, who are the people that are benefiting from these empowerment programs? You know, and that is where the media, we can always, lash onto.
All right. When we return, ASU threatens to sanction uncooperative vice chancellors over university strike. Stay with us. Still Journalist Hangout. We'll be right back after this commercial break. It's 16 days to the 2019 general election, and we're counting down. And ahead of that election, we're looking at the security situation around the country. And if we have to have a peaceful election, and the alarm raised by the National Security Advisor should be taken very, very seriously. Now, fighting to finish is the hallmark of the ultimate champion of any cause, having confronted the federal government over its stance on the ongoing strike since the 5th of November last year. Members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, may be up in arms for another confrontation, this time with some vice chancellors. ASU President Professor Abiodun Ogunyemi threatened that the union will sanction vice chancellors who have been uncooperative in the ongoing lecturer strike. Professor Ogunyemi accused them of intimidating lecturers in their institutions and urging them back to the classroom. What is happening here, Wale?
In the first place, okay.
The control, can ASU control this vice chancellors?
I think it's a moral threat. I think it's not something that ASU can enforce. But it's also a kind of trying to gear up the VCs to let them know that ASU is aware of their intrigues, especially in state universities, where the appointment of vice chancellors has almost become a political tool.
More political, yeah.
Most governors just appoint vice chancellors. They maneuver, put their cronies there. So most of these vice chancellors want to be loyal to the state governors instead of being loyal to the universities. And of course, the universities are supposed to be independent, and run independently. So, but I think ASU, maybe if ASU, we were talking of ASU of about 30 years ago, it was so powerful that probably could sanction some VCs, even globally, and blackmail them and all that.
Even before 30 years ago,
yeah.
ASU till under the likes of Dr. Fashino.
Yeah, Dr. Fashino, and but now where you have a situation where in some schools there are about 2 factions. Look at Foye in Ekiti State. There are about 2 or 3 factions. University, there are factions. Even at OEU, Ife, there are factions. So I think it will become a very difficult thing for ASU to sanction any vice chancellor. So I think it's just a moral threat. But then we must not lose sight of the fact that the demands of ASU, to me, is in public interest, largely. There are some demands that are for them as individuals. But in terms of reviving academic institutions, investing more money into research, and ensuring that Nigerian universities meet global standards, I think nobody should fault that. Because if you don't have good universities, you can't talk about industrial development, you can't talk about scientific innovations. You see that most of the best universities in the world are associated with the developed countries. Countries like US, America, Harvard. In fact, most of those best universities are the ones that produce their leaders. And there's a link between those universities and the industrial sector.
Like in Boston now, you have MIT, you have Boston University,
Harvard University,
and you have Harvard in the same...
And there's a link between the universities and the industrial sector. NASA, those that manufacture planes, manufacture drugs, there are researches that are done by universities that they take to these companies to commercialize. So you can't talk about industrial upliftment of any nation without funding the university system. So I think we should support them to that extent. But I think in terms of saying they want to sanction the vice chancellors, I think it's just a moral threat. I don't think they can enforce that.
TKB.
Well, we know for a fact that there is a percentage of profits that is supposed to pay for research and development. And we have nothing less than 14, I think, research institutes, most of them in Ibadan, whose job mainly is to conduct research. But you and I know that in the last 50 years, how many of their results have been converted to commercial viability. And that's why the whole case of ASU asking for research grants fall under the radar. Because for you to come to equity, you must come with clean hands. And many of them, in the conventional sense, have done enough research. Because if you've done enough, you will not be in the Nigerian system. You'll be somewhere else. Because all over the world, people are looking for those who have done research and are willing to do more. And they know that your country cannot pay for it, they will take you. And they give you all the tools you need. Because it's in their own best interest if they have the jump on other countries when it comes to particular technology. But having said that, vice chancellors, I don't think belong to ASU. I think they have their own association. As well as that, most of them, they are taken from the senior staff, as well as universities and all that. That
no,
means,
I think SANU is different.
Yeah, but they are senior staff association.
They have their own association.
So I don't think ASU has even the moral one to question them in the real sense. Give me the case of sex for mark scandals, things that have been swept under the carpet, plagiarism, which is rampant all over Nigerian universities, and some very, very lazy, lecturers who will do the same course and simply phone it in without any new material in the last 10 years. They just take whatever they taught when they were in school and force it down the throat of the students, and they keep producing students who cannot be employed. You and I know that we come across some graduates that cannot write a sentence to save their own lives. Things are that bad.
Asuwa, so since November, they've been on strike, and the federal government have been reaching out to ASU, and a lot of carrots have been dangled. And yesterday it was reported, maybe refuted later, that they've not reached an agreement. So, who would this benefit? Our kids at home.
Well, being a victim, because I've been a victim.
I was saying that.
Ayo, you've been a victim, you know.
He has forgotten that.
And since then, that is why sometimes when I look at this, when once is the first month, the second month, you know, the strike to me becomes more or less, to me, it becomes more or less like you are trying to suffer the student. Because if, for instance, I'm a final year student, and I know that in the next couple of months,
Can't meet your NYC batch.
one, then two, I'll be useless in the house because I'll become a burden to my parents or to anybody, maybe my benefactor, you know. I'll start looking for a job where there is none. Because you are not a graduate, but the graduates that are outside,
struggling.
they are also looking for jobs.
NYC graduates.
You understand? You know? And then you look at even this government, they are telling you that they are struggling, you know, in every fair. If you look at it, the government, it will be very difficult for this government to, you know, entirely, you know, accede to ASU's demand. right now.
Some of them not realistic with the financial
it can't
situation.
because of the financial situation.
Country.
So
while the minimum wage people,
like
the NLC are asking for their own.
You
own
understand?
breath.
You know, NLC is there, ASU is there, and some other things. And don't forget, it is election period. So it will be very difficult. So the only thing, to me, I keep saying it, ASU can say, okay, like the last time I was speaking with Danny Kere, he said they have listed some things, some demands, some of the demands, and the government said they are going to look through it. Fine. If the government is going to look through some of those things, let the public know those ones that the government says they are going to do. There was a particular, I think it was fake news, that, okay, a federal government has, released some funds. Later we heard it was state fund, Things like this is not what a student at home want to listen to.
Okay, I have Amos. Amos is calling us. Amos is on the line. Thank you, Amos, for joining us. From Kogi State. Thank you, Amos. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes.
I'm always happy to make a contribution towards your program, because your program is outstanding in the whole world.
The whole world.
The whole world.
I'm blessed, Amos. Thank you, Amos.
Everybody is watching it now all over the world. Well, I just want to make a contribution before this particular topic about ASU. The previous topic, I wanted to get to, but it was not true, about violence in election. My take is this, that if the security agents are not being used by government in power, and everybody sees the security agent as being fair, as being, right in whatever they do, you discover that people have faith in the election and they may not be violent. Then secondly, we all know that political appointment or acquisition of political appointment is synonymous to material acquisition. And until we do away with that, definitely violence. Because like somebody says, and he says that election is a go or die affair. Why? Because even what they call them, some of these politicians who cannot build even a kitchen, you see them building mansions all over the
Thank you, Amos.
country.
Thank you for your contribution. Asugo.
So,
Still on ASU.
Yeah, yes. So what, to me, ASU also needs to let us know what is on ground. Even if it is every day, the federal government, for now, they are doing their projects. They want to see that this ASU crisis is done with, completely. But the students, they will really need to go back to the classrooms. And the only solution is, okay, the federal government is saying that they have, if the federal government says they have 100 billion or they have 20 billion, ASU should be able to tell us, okay, for now, this 20 billion, bring it, let's solve maybe demand A.
2 or 3 universities.
Nothing has been paid.
You understand? So if federal government has not dropped anything, ASU should let us know, or let the federal government show commitment that, okay, in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
a timeline.
There should be a timeline for it. I know that ASU is trying, but the students are not happy. From all the feelers that I've gotten, the students are not happy. Most of them are very, very unhappy. And that is why we are talking about this insecurity.
Yes, now,
because,
conscripting them.
They conscript them into becoming thugs for them to survive.
To foment violence.
Yeah, exactly. So ASU should also look at it. They should look at the parents' angle and the student angle for them to be able to see how this problem can be solved.
When we were growing up, it wasn't a common phenomenon to see private universities all around the country. No, there wasn't any.
I can't remember any private.
I can't remember.
Nobody will attend
private. Do you understand? It was all government-owned institution, and yes, they used to go on strike. But the difference between then and now is that after 4 years, after everything, you can be assured of maybe getting more opportunity of employment and everything. But yes, but what are youths go through now, the number of universities we have, parents could afford to take their children to Republic of Benin, go to Ghana, go everywhere. Alternatives at the expense of this government-owned institution.
And that is why it appears people in power don't take ASU serious. Because they don't have their students in public universities. They don't have their wards in public universities. If they have their children at the University of Lagos, Ife, and not in Harvard, in Boston, then of course they will feel concerned because those children will be at home, talking to their parents, say, look, I want to go back to school. So we have a situation, the idea of having public school is to create a kind of watershed between children of the rich and the poor.
So that
when you are from a rich home, you see people without shoes, then you have a feeling about what poverty is all about. So that when you become a leader in the future, you have already interacted with people from different layers of the society. But now we have a situation where children of the rich class don't even understand what poverty is all about. And these are the people that we have put on the queue, to lead us in future. They will become members of the House of Rep, senators. So they don't actually understand what you are talking about. When you are talking about poverty, when you are talking about, that people are suffering. They never experience right from primary school. But in those days, you see the child of Awolowo will be in the same school, the child of Onta, with a Pambawa tapper.
University of
when the child cannot even afford a breakfast, the child of Awolowo knows what that means. He explains, he interacts with him. But now there is no interaction at all between children.
No meeting points.
No meeting point. And that's a real generation gap that, is a potential threat to our livelihood.
Yes, it's a serious danger because, like I was saying before we started, the danger is those in the private universities and those in the public universities.
4 years, private university, you know they're graduating day. And once they're entering, they give them their day of graduation.
These same students, these same children in the private universities will end up having another class up there. And we, the children that are going to the public school, and they will have the class here. That is how Nigeria is going to, the outlook of Nigeria in future.
Man, not looking funny.
At all.
Let's move on. The armed banditry ravaging the northwest states of Zamfara and Katsina State, we spoke about it yesterday, is assuming a cat and mouse game where security agencies win some and lose some in the battle to keep the bandits at bay. However, it is chilling to hear that the military is taking the battle to the bandits. We hear that troops of the Operation Sharon Daji killed 21 and captured 17 bandits terrorizing the two states between the 22nd and 28th of January. The troops also recovered dangerous weapons, motorcycles, and illicit drugs from the bandits. The way to peace may not be far away from what we have now. GKB, we spoke about this yesterday, how it's so difficult that some Nigerians were leaving the country to live, from leaving Katsina to live in Niger Republic. And that's really created a kind of fear on people's mind. But the good news is that the Operation Sharon Daji, they've been able to give their scorecard to say, look, we are on top of this situation.
Let's review the news, whether it's good or not, in another week or thereabouts. We can now qualify it. It's a welcome development. But whether it's good news or not, only time can tell. Because we've been here before, even with Boko Haram. We've taken back states and taken back territories that we lost a few days later. Again, we have said it on this program, we'll say it again. The Nigerian army is not equipped for this kind of war. There must be a meeting point.
These are bandits, so
I know, bandits.
These are not terrorists.
They are bandits. There must be a meeting point between what the police is capable of doing and the needs to make sure that the guns that are available in the Sahel region will not overthrow our civilization, as it were. Because we are having a low-scale war that will keep pretending it's not there. And the entire northern border is a theater that will keep pretending and not happening. And like Wale said, the quality of arms and the number of arms available in that particular region for whoever can afford it. You and I know the story about how for a loaf of bread you can get an automatic in some cities in Libya. That's how cheap guns are in that area. So I would like to applaud them, but I have to wait and tarry a while to see whether this can be maintained. Because, like you said, we can't afford to win some and lose some. We must win and we must win for real.
Wale?
Well, I think it's good news, but it's not the end of the story. We are happy that progress appears to have been made, at least in recent, I think between January 22 and January 28. You know, and they actually rescued some 89.
It's quite recent.
You know, people that were,
recent.
you know, that were kidnapped. So beyond that, I think Zamfara is unique for so many reasons. It's a state of a 3 almost 4 million people, but then it's an extremely poor state with maybe less than 300 million IGR. And this is a state that has gold and a lot of solid minerals. So I think the government, beyond looking for military solutions, should also work out an economic policy to ensure that this huge population that are largely poor, you know, are given some incentives that will dissuade them from violence. Because we have seen that poverty and lack of essentials of life, you know, we always push people to the extreme.
That's the visual of the Nigeria Air Force actually targeting some of this
their hideouts.
Hideouts.
It shows you how sophisticated they are, that we have to employ the Air Force.
Around, and in the quest of flushing them out, some of them moved to Katsina State. That's why Katsina is involved right now, Asuko.
Exactly. The operation, the troops they're trying, you know, even on Monday, but just like you said, you win some, you lose some. On Monday, there was an attack in I think Zumi or so, and some people were actually kidnapped, you know. It's not just going to be all rosy, we know, because to deal with this kinds of situation or this kinds of problem is going to take tact, you know, and the troops will have to do, because this is not, like we said, this is not the kind of war, it's not the conventional war that we know. Banditry has been there for a very long time. And remember, it was even in Zamfara that the governor was saying that he has left everything to God, you know. So it tells you a lot that even these bandits can even overrun a particular government, you know. So, but now that they are being pushed into one side, it is good. But we need them to do more.
To flush them out.
To flush them out completely, to move them completely out of Nigeria. Because if they move from Zamfara to Katsina, it becomes a problem, you know. So they have to move them from Katsina to wherever we need to move
wipe them out of existence.
Well, I don't know, because me, I'm human, so, you know, because, so the thing is, the thing is, we need to move them out completely from Nigeria. That is just it. And then the way that they are bringing these arms has to stop. Our borders, I don't know if Donald Trump can be thinking of building a wall around Mexico. Why can't we also be thinking of building a huge wall,
the level of
Niger
poverty
and Chad,
still ravaging people that are looking for what to eat? You're talking about what?
So we need to.
When the government tried that to Nigeria to build what?
Zamfara is about 39,000 square kilometers. So
the last time I went to Sokoto, they were saying, it's not far now. By the time you move like some hours, you get to Niger. I was wondering, just like that. They say it's not far, it's just like. So you can see. So if we don't have, you know, our borders are not properly manned and patrolled, and, you know, the borders are not well secured, these bandits can always come in, attack or kidnap, and move to wherever they are coming from. So I just want to thank God that the Nigerian Air Force, they are the ones that they are even making these bandits to be very unsafe.
They have no choice.
You
the
know,
roads are terrible.
because right now, if you notice, it is the air support that is winning this war for us.
The roads are terrible. Remember, there was a TVC news story of people calling the army, and the army truck was stuck in the mud, and got there about 5 hours later. And they responded on time. They got the call at 9 a.m. They moved at 9:30, but they didn't get there until 3. So the Air Force had no choice. We have to, that's why the change of
It
tactics.
has to be a combination of
We have to
all
combine
the-
They
everybody.
have to really combine
Work
for us to
together
win
in
this
synergy.
war. If not, it will be very difficult. Both from the Boko Haram, from the armed banditries. That is why we don't want
to record
this
success,
election.
the Air Force is key. That's the reality that we face.
All right, Wale.
Yeah, I think the 17 people that they captured are more interested in that than those that have been killed, because those people should be able to extract relevant information
Yes,
from
gather
them. about
intelligence
those
from them.
that are
Exactly.
supporting this, these elements, those that are backing them, where they get their weapons. So, and I think on the basis of that intelligence, they should be able to deal with the taproot.
And also prosecute them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I
Logical
feel
conclusion.
if they don't prosecute these people, and we don't want rehabilitation, please. No rehabilitation. Because they are well, once you arrest anybody and they are bandits,
Let them face the music.
Let them face the music. If you need to take them to Abuja or you take them to wherever or anywhere for them to be prosecuted, let them be prosecuted. We need people to to face the full wrath of the law.
I want to thank you, Asuko James, for being part of this edition of Journalist Hangout. Chief Gani Kaide Balogun GKB. Thank you.
Always a
Osinoba
pleasure.
of Yoruba
Osiare.
land. Osiare of Yoruba land. I was tongue twisting. And Wale Adeyi, I want to thank you for your intelligent contribution. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another interesting episode of the program. You can also watch Journalist Hangout on our platforms showing on the screen. We're also on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalist Hangout at tvcnews.tv. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.